The TTC's budget process is underway. It comes at a time when people have been complaining loudly about transit and the state of transit. As we mentioned, the mayor is going to be on a subway this morning, a subway car with no air conditioning on a day where there's a heat warning in effect. Yesterday, city staff and councillors met to discuss the capital budget, not the operating budget, but the capital budget, including plans to invest billions of dollars in subway service extensions. Here to talk about all of that is Josh Colle. He's chair of the TTC. Good morning.
Good morning, Matt.
As I mentioned, the mayor, after some much prodding by a frustrated resident in the city, is going to ride end-to-end on the Bloor Danforth line in a subway car with no air conditioning to see what thousands of people have been facing this summer. What does that say about the state of the TTC, do you think?
Mayor's hot subway car ride, it sounds a bit like a bad B movie, but I think I admire that he's going to take up the challenge. I think what it says is that, and this is no new news or headline, is that this system's been neglected for a long time. And so some of what we've been trying to do and have done over the past couple of years, and why we're thrilled about federal money that had been announced, is for the first time in recent memory, we're actually investing in kind of some of the boring stuff that makes someone's ride more reliable, safer, and hopefully more comfortable. So things like track and signaling system, the things that people always rail about because it causes delay. And at the same time, even things like, repairing air conditioning on subway cars. And it's just been neglected for far too long, and we have to continue on that trend of improving that.
At the same time, the mayor is asking for a 2.6% budget reduction for the TTC's operating budget for 2017. Do you see any clash in him talking about air conditioning and wanting the TTC to speed up its air conditioning repairs, and also asking the TTC to do essentially more with less?
Yeah, there's no doubt this is a tough budget, because the exercise is a difficult one. Our ridership has not it's actually not down, but it's softened, and that means we have less revenue. And so right away we're kind of behind the eight ball. And on top of it, we've had some provincial changes to accessibility rules that have added another bill yet to transit. And the fact is, the cost of transit increases every year. It's labor intensive. It increases with inflation. So the challenge of providing more service, which I've been really proud to do with the mayor, but then at the same time squeeze money out of it, is a tough nut to crack.
Do you think it's fair that the mayor asks for a budget cut now from the TTC?
I think it is extremely difficult. It is fair for us to look at how we can best spend the money, because it's limited. And so we are doing that. And the process that's going on right now is looking at everything we do to make sure that it's going to frontline service and it's going to help people move around the city. And I think that's a fair process. Whether we get to 2.6 or not is an entirely different question. We're honestly looking at everything, but at the same time, sometimes you just can't get blood from a stone.
The CEO of the TTC says that this is unpalatable, this request.
I think what they have put before us are some unpalatable options, and I would share that word with him, when you look at what you would have to do in some scenarios to meet the 2.6.
Will you have to, if you are forced to cut the budget of the TTC by 2.6%, will there be service cuts?
Yeah, and that's the unpalatable part, right? And that's where I think that we would be making a mistake, because we've added so much service over the last 2 years at historic levels to help get people around the city, that if we would then in year 3, take back on some of that. So I think what we have to do at all costs is retain and protect service levels.
Do you understand how this drives people insane?
Yeah,
they
totally
are now waiting to try, and get onto a subway that has no air conditioning, a streetcar that is packed full of people, and they're being asked by the mayor to cut the budget of that.
All you have to do is, you and I could walk down the street right now to the King or Queen car, and it would, to illustrate your point of how it drives people insane, because that's how people measure us, right? Is how can you get on a car, how comfortable it is, how quick it is. And so for the average rider, and most of our really loyal patient riders, they're thinking, are you nuts? You're going to cut service? I can't even get on a streetcar.
So answer that. I mean, that's the question.
No. So here's the perfect example. So this is a massive company, right? It's over $1 billion budget. We have 14,000 employees. Are there things that we can do better in terms of consolidating our head office, in terms of asset management, in terms of our procurement systems that would save money? And I think there are, and we're doing a lot of those. And so those are the things we have to look at that do save dollars. My only caveat is, a lot of those take time. And so some of those, like the police are going through right now, those savings might be delivered in 3 to 5 years. I think my commitment, and I'm sure the CEO and most of my board members would share it, is we don't want to cut anything that would make that King car, or if you're waiting on the Vaughan bus, any worse.
Why is there this gap between what politicians want and what the experts at the TTC, the people who are there employed, the CEO, say is happening? Because Andy Byford says the operation is in the midst of a review, but is also a very lean operation.
Yeah.
The mayor says, well, if there's not fat there,
Yeah.
I don't believe them.
Yeah, which is, I think, is unfair. I think the reality is, and now that I've had kind of an inside look at it being in this role, is that the TTC, it's almost a 100-year-old company. It's big and it's changing, but the change is slow, admittedly. And right, so a lot of the systems that we have are still, we still have paper-based everything. Our inventory is throwing parts in a bucket. So modernizing that takes time. And so the frustration for politicians, which I'm one of, is they want that, immediate return on that investment, and it'll come, but it's not necessarily going to come within this budget year. And so that's the pressure that, and I feel like I'm kind of got to be the broker in between what politicians like myself want today or yesterday and what we can deliver.
One of the reasons why the TTC is really concerned about a number of things is that ridership is dropping. One of the reasons why people are reluctant perhaps to take the TTC if they have other options is because of everything that we're talking about. That you get on a subway car in the middle of summer and it's like a steam bath with a bunch of people you don't know.
Yeah.
How do you ensure that people will choose, if they can, choose to take the TTC, given the fact that service seems to be slipping?
Yeah, so that's the perfect way of positioning it. We want people to choose that option. And so right now, if you can't get on a car, you don't even have that choice. The interesting thing is our ridership is actually not going down. It is growing at less of a rate, but it's still increasing, which tells you how much demand there is in the city and how much the city is growing. But at the end of the day, things like having new streetcars and buses and subways, which we have had and bought in the last couple of years, makes a big difference. It means having cleaner system. It means having, actually customer friendly and focused people instead of a ticket collector sitting in a booth who can't really help you. And so those things are happening and changing, but there's so much more to do. And so we'll get there. But I can see the frustration when I'm on the system. I was on a very hot bus myself last night. You can kind of see the frustration. I fully appreciate it. So we've got more to do, and that's why the prospect of service cuts would be so difficult this year.
Do you think people have faith in the TTC these days?
You know what? I think the TTC has become kind of the popular city whipping boy, and I think it's almost unfair at times because it's an easy target. And so I think some people don't, because we've now been conditioned in this city just to kind of I was going to use a bad word, but poop on the TTC. And I think that has to change, and I think we will change that over time.
But people have also been conditioned to accept the fact that the subway's not going to have air conditioning, that you're going to wait
I certainly don't feel that by the calls I get and by the work we're doing furiously at Greenwood Yards to repair those air conditioning units. I do think, though, that the people have accepted to some degree, but at the same time in this city, there's no shortage of discussion and pressure on the TTC to improve. We've got to make sure that we've got the policy, the people, and the money in place to make sure we can deliver on that.
Just up the road from us is the TIFF headquarters. TIFF starts tomorrow. The King Street car is the busiest line in the city. You just grimaced when I brought this up because the King is going to be closed. The King car is going to be rerouted. How many people will be affected by this?
Well, we know that about 60,000 people ride King every day, and so certainly we love TIFF.
Do you think it's a smart decision to shut down King Street, the busiest line?
If I wear my city councilor hat and we want to support TIFF, it makes, we want that to be big and great. As the chair of the TTC, I couldn't support the closure of that line. Unfortunately, it's not our call.
But what does it say then about the priority?
Yeah,
when you look at transit and where it fits into the pecking order, what does it say when we're willing to do that?
I think TIFF could have an amazing festival right around this building and let the King car run. I think people are conditioned well enough in the city that you could probably have King closed to everything else except for festivities and the streetcar. And that's something that the TTC has pushed, but I think it speaks to your point that if we get kind of trumped by transportation and maybe economic development issues, that's not a good sign, because it is an inconvenience for 60,000 people.
Hence, the TTC being, as you say, the whipping boy in the city.
Which you're going to help me change, and I'm so excited about that because I do think that if you think about how many things do go right in a general day of the TTC, it is stunning. 2 million people a day, most of whom get to their destination on time with a decent ride. Thousands of employees. We've got 2,000 buses out there. The fact that we, I would say, with rarely with exceptions, deliver that service level is an amazing story every day. We just have to improve that even more so that people, to using your language, choose to take the TTC as opposed to maybe Uber or getting back into the car.
Josh, thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Josh Colle, chair of the Toronto Transit Commission, talking about budgets, the state of the TTC, and faith in transit in this city. 22 minutes.